My name is Jennifer DeMarco. Welcome to Class 9 of the Forge It web series workshop. We're starting a new section today, Section 3 or Week 3. I call this section Take Action because now for these next 4 classes, we're going to be talking about your team, the team of individuals that will make your project happen. One of my favorite things to say is, actions speak louder than blogs or tweets or status updates. You students have heard me say it before, and anyone who follows any of the blogs that I run have heard me say it before. But I really believe that. You can critique someone, you can try to tell them how to do something, but really the only credit, the only credence that you really bring to your name is when you take action and do it. And that's how I feel about all my team members. If I have a team member who isn't taking action and doing what they're supposed to do, not just talking about it, because ideas, unfortunately, are a dime a dozen. Lots of people can think about how to do something, but very few people are good at following through and actually doing it. So I just wanted to open with that today. When you're choosing your team, choose people who are going to take action, not just talk about taking action. All right? Let's jump right in. Today we're going to be dealing with just the basic team, not the part of the team I call the talent. Now, some of you will have heard that phrase, the talent, refer to actors alone. But in my worldview, the talent includes more than just the actors. And we're not going to be covering that today. That will be in the next class, Class 10. Today we're going to be talking about what I just call the crew, or the team. Let's go through them now. The prop manager, set manager, the cinematographer, camera operator, the lighting crew, the sound crew, the producer, the executive producer. Now you don't have to know what each of these are, what each of these titles mean, or what those responsibilities would be for those team members. That's what this class is about. So let's go for it. The prop manager, set manager. Now I combine those two. I've also heard people call this a producer, a certain kind of producer, I would guess. A prop manager is someone who does what it sounds like they do. They manage your props. Now, if you have a series that has a lot of props, such as Epic Heroes, which has an enormous number of props, you are going to want a prop manager. Now, how do you manage an object? You make sure that if that object appears in that scene, if the prop appears in that scene, it's on set, at the location where you'll be shooting. You also know where things are being stored. Even though it's wonderful to have your actors, part of your talent crew, to have your actors supply their own costuming, makeup, some cool little key props, it also becomes a real nightmare, and I can say that from experience, because suddenly people don't quite remember what they wore, or something gets ripped or torn or dirty, or it's just not available that day. You don't want that. As much as possible, you want to keep your props under lock and key. And when I say props, I do mean costumes too. And in some cases, even makeup sets. Like for instance, if you have a character that always wears a lilac mascara, lilac eyeshadow, and a lilac tinted lip gloss, you want to make sure that that makeup set for that character is in your possession, not the actor's possession. Yes, this sometimes can make things more expensive. Again, speaking from experience, I do know that. But it will save you such heartache and nightmares in logistics in the end. A prop manager, set manager, they do a little bit more than just manage the inventory of the props, making sure they're transported to the locations. Often they're also the people that orchestrate things such as making sure food is available to your actors and crew if you work for more than 4 hours at a stretch. The prop manager, set manager can handle a lot of that. Now, often you already have food on hand, it just needs to be prepared or set out. The prop manager, set manager can also have extra copies of the script. Now, again, I can tell you, not all your actors are going to come with their scripts. And a lot of times actors come with their scripts on their phones. This can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you want to flip quickly to something, or if an actor simply doesn't have a script and they expect you to have a script. Oftentimes actors don't understand that the scripts that the crew have are marked up much differently than their script. So you have to have extra scripts on hand. Yes, again, I know that can get expensive, but these are one of the things that will help your day be shorter. If you have a lengthy day at a location you're paying for, well, that can get even more expensive. So your prop manager, set manager can keep things moving swiftly. I once had talent say to me, you know, I think that it's an important job of the set manager to bring the director a coffee. And I laughed about that as I was handed the coffee, but I have to tell you, it actually was really nice, because as the director, it didn't feel like a special perk to me. It felt like I have to be on, doing something, engaged in action, even before I say the word action, and even after I say the word cut. I'm always setting up the next shot or getting things ready, even if the actors are having a little downtime for a snack or a run to the water fountain. So to have someone hand me a drink, to have someone hand the director a coffee or a soda or a bottle of water is pretty darn huge. And I told myself after that day, wow, this is something I want to budget for, a set manager. That would be really nice. Another thing is that if you need to be able to receive emergency phone calls during a shoot, or if you're expecting to hear from one of your team members who isn't at the location, a set manager can manage your phone. Those are the kinds of things a set manager will do. So it's not just your props, it's a lot more than that. And it's invaluable. Again, some people do call this a producer. There are many different types of producers, which we'll get to in a second. I think it's perfectly fine to call that person a producer. A producer is a nice title to have after your name in the credits. It's really ultimately up to you. Actually, that reminds me of something. Ultimately up to you. I recently had a conversation with a woman who works at another production company, and it was really a great conversation. We were talking about, she had been talking to some folks about a new project she was about to become engaged in, and she said, you know, this type of person and this type of person, a producer, an executive producer, they don't really even do this and this and this that I thought they did. And interestingly enough, there are no tried and true rules. There's no hard and fast laws about this. One book that I rely on very heavily for defining roles in terms of producers is this book by Maureen Ryan. It's called Producer to Producer. If you're serious about independent film, especially if you're serious about independent, low and no budget film, this is an excellent book because it's literally written by a producer who is an Academy Award winning producer for producers. And she point blank says, look, studio to studio, company to company, these different names, prop manager, set manager, producer, executive producer, they're going to mean different things to different people. There is no right or wrong. So don't worry about that so much. And what I'm going to be teaching you guys today is simply and solely how I do things, which work to successfully produce 12 episodes of Epic Heroes relatively smoothly in the grand scheme of things. So let's move right on. The next thing on our list is the cinematographer camera operator. Now, actually, those two things are very, very different. A cinematographer will sit down with the writer, with the director, and help them craft the shots. Oh, this would be much more powerful as an ECU. Wouldn't this be amazing as an EWS, an extreme wide shot with a pan? Or what if we tilt in this way? A cinematographer knows about the visuals. They are an artist. They have an eye. And if you can afford a cinematographer, or if you fancy yourself a cinematographer and you're going to go over that script with a cinematographer's eye, leaving behind your writer's hat, that is wonderful. I would say go for it. But a lot of times what you do wind up working with is a cinematographer who's really more of a camera operator. A camera operator is someone who comes and shoots for you. They literally hold the camera. You tell them either in the script or there on the set what angles you want. Remember angles from our other class? You tell them what you're looking for, and often you are watching the digital viewfinder on the camera along with them, or you have a separate unit in your hands that shows what they are shooting. And when I say you, I am talking about you as the director. If you're going to be hiring an outside director, then that director would have either their eye on the viewfinder or on a separate screen. So a cinematographer is more of an artist. They're going to help develop the script with you. A camera operator is going to point and shoot the way you want them to. Now, if you have a good relationship with your camera operator, you can absolutely say to them, you know, if you have ideas for some cool shots, or if you see something that you're just like, wow, the blue of that flower really pops and brings out the blue in her eyes, Go for it. Have that dialogue open, and it's only going to lead to unexpected finds and discoveries. Moving right along. Lighting crew. Now, when I say lighting crew, I'm actually usually talking about one person, especially in terms of low and no budget independent film and web series. Lighting crew is the person who literally handles your lights. Now, you might think, are you serious as the director? I can handle lights, that's not a problem. Well, you can, but let me just come back to that in a minute. One thing that you don't want is whoever's working as your camera operator or cinematographer, you don't want them involved as either lighting crew or sound crew. And this is why. Every time they have to step off their camera mark, where you have them standing to get the shot, and go and move a light or adjust the boom mic or whatever it is, they're going to have to refind and refocus the camera. Now, as someone who worked as a director, cinematographer, and light crew member, I know that that was a nightmare. It added an enormous amount of extra time. I would even go so far as to say, in a perfect world, you don't want to be a cinematographer and a director, because as a director, you want to be able to go up to your actors and direct them. You want to be able to position their bodies. You want to be able to talk to them one-on-one. But a camera operator, cinematographer needs to stay on mark, focused with that shot framed. So again, you can double up roles, but there are some roles you're just going to want to avoid doubling up on. Lighting crew is one of them. Now with Epic Heroes, one of the things that we used was very straightforward. Talk about low and no budget film. We used tree lights. Tree lights can be purchased at any major convenience store. They are usually 3 bulbs, anywhere from 60 to 80 watt, in a hood on a stick. It kind of looks like a lamp post with 3 heads. We did fit them, however, with pure white bulbs, as opposed to the yellow light that you find in most normal bulbs. We had 3 of those at our best, and the light was excellent. You've probably heard the phrase 3-point lighting. Well, that's what you get. You get 1 light from the front, 1 light from the side, 1 light coming from behind. If you can simulate that, your actors will be the best lit, especially for high definition film. One of the other things that we did use is 2 tree lamps at one point and 1 floor lamp. This was purchased at a hardware store. It was a single bulb, it was 100 watt, and it just sat on the floor. Now, lighting crew, whoever you have as your lighting crew, needs to be aware of one very important thing. Lights get hot. Talent, your actors, should never touch the lights, nor should their hair or any loose clothing or anything else. You could say, well, these are tree lights. I've got one by my desk. They're going to be on for much longer than they normally would be. They get hot. And especially if you get that down low floor light at a hardware store, those get sizzling. Your light crew may very well want to wear gloves that are going to reduce that heat and protect their hands. Those can be picked up at a fireplace supply store or again at a hardware store. Let's move on to sound crew. Now, a lot of folks think that a top mount mic will be more than enough. Well, I'd like you to go now, if you haven't already, and watch the first episode of Epic Heroes. Epic Heroes works exclusively in the first episode with a top mount mic. Now, that was also our very first episode, so of course there was bumps. There are studio-produced pilots that have clunkiness. But you will hear that the sound is the major issue. That was a top mount mic. You want to try to avoid that. Why not avoid it? Well, it's usually expensive. If you Google boom mic, you'll see that the prices are outrageous. But guess what? A generic boom mic, and a boom mic is a long, skinny mic that you then fit on the end of a pole. That pole is held within inches of your actors. So it's not mounted on the camera, which can be 3, 4, 10 feet away. A boom mic hovers right above their heads and is pointed directly at them. You say, well, how can you possibly do that? It's just outside the camera's frame. Your sound crew, your boom mic operator, has to be able to hold that pole and that mic at strange angles, far to one side, high above their head, for quite a long time. And they have to be able to keep it steady. You don't want it to dip into the frame. Actually, I'm sure we've all seen films, even studio produced films, where a mic will dip into the corner of the frame. You can find this footage on blooper sites and things like that. You really want to avoid that. A generic boom mic, even though reviews often are, oh, never buy a generic, never buy a generic. We picked up a generic boom mic for under $50. And instead of buying a specialty boom mic pole, we simply purchased what's called a monopod. It's like a tripod, but it's just one leg. And we got that locally, just at a convenience store, for under $25. Now, a specialty boom mic pole will allow you to string the cord of the boom mic, the wire, the long wire from the boom mic, through the center of the pole into your camera. Well, that's good and fine. But one roll of duct tape or electrical tape, you can easily attach that wire to your monopod, and it can go right into the camera. You just saved yourself literally hundreds of dollars, but you can start your first episode with professional quality sound. Now, with most generic boom mics, they do take batteries and they do have an on-off switch. Those batteries will drain fast, so make sure that you pop them out, turn it off anytime you're not using the mic. And also remember, if that switch is off, the mic's not on. You don't want to have to redo shots because your sound crew forgot to turn the mic on. All right, let's move right along. The last two members of our crew, of our core team of crew, are the producer and the executive producer. Now again, if you're very serious about independent film, Maureen A. Ryan's book, Producer to Producer, is a must-have. Brand new, it retails for about $40, but I'm pretty certain you can still get it used. But to just touch on what a producer and an executive producer are, and again, this is from my perspective, which mirrors Maureen Ryan's perspective. A producer is the person who makes the project happen. They keep everything running smoothly. Remember how I said your prop manager, set manager could also be called a producer? Well, absolutely. But guess what? A producer does more than that. They also secure your in-kind donations. Now, an in-kind donation isn't exactly what it sounds like. An in-kind donation is, for instance, we needed to shoot a scene of epic heroes at a roller skating rink. Our producer went to the owner of the roller skating rink and asked if we could use the space for free for 4 hours in exchange for their name and their business name being featured in the episode and in the credits. They said yes, and that was securing an in-kind donation. Now, if you have a producer who's really good, you can secure almost all your props, your craft services, and your locations as in-kind donations. Now, let me just jump back for a second. Craft services doesn't mean glue and scissors and paper and tape. It means food and drink for the cast and crew. So a producer can secure your in-kind donations. They can also scout locations for you. Scout locations such as, I needed to shoot at a lighthouse. Where can I shoot a lighthouse? What will it cost in terms of permits? How far away is it? They also organize the actors. They make sure the actors are in the right place at the right time. They make sure they have everything they need, such as their costuming. Again, we're talking about jumping over to prop manager, set manager. They have what they need in terms of costuming, makeup, directions to the location. Do they need to leave early? The producer organizes all of this information. So as you can see, when I say a producer makes the project happen, I really do mean it. They handle a lot of the details. They have to be great at phone work, even better, personal, one-on-one with location owners and businesses. They have to be dynamic, and they really need to be willing to take action, not just talk about it. Because in many cases, the buck stops with the producer. An executive producer is a different animal than a producer. Though producers can also do things like secure actual financing and donations, they can indeed be part of asking people to contribute funds or helping to create press packages and that kind of thing to fund the project. Most of the financing responsibilities fall to the executive producer. Now, this may mean that the executive producer is the person who runs the fundraising campaign online, or the executive producer is someone who orchestrates the fundraising activities locally and in your community. An executive producer focuses primarily on the finances. They're not running the day-to-day business. So you might think, well, yes, I can see now why there needs to be multiple producers. Maybe one person to secure locations, one person to secure props, one person to handle the actors, whatever it is. But again, sometimes these tasks can be split up across crew members. For Epic Heroes, our executive producer secured financing, but also managed all of the talent. They made sure that all the crew and all the actors were at the right locations at the right times. That was a really good division of labor for us. You need to find what's best for you. If you put an ad out looking to hire a producer, you want to stipulate what the responsibilities of that producer will be in your worldview and for your project. An executive producer, well, they are definitely going to assume that they're going to be handling fundraising. But you're also going to want to make that clear. Sometimes, as Maureen Ryan writes about in her book, people say, well, I just can't afford to hire a producer. And Maureen always says, you can't afford not to have a producer. I couldn't agree more. As the writer, director, or cinematographer, and certainly as the talent, you should not be in charge of fundraising. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't contribute. You should. You absolutely should. But you can't head it up. You can't spearhead those efforts. Because if you do, the creative side of the project will suffer. It will seem more slapshot and not as fully realized. You don't want that. Someone who is business-minded and business-oriented needs to head up the fundraising, and that is your producer or executive producer. Let them handle those details. Again, be involved, but let them head up those efforts. A producer or executive producer are vital to a successful project. You might wonder, how can you say, Jennifer, that I can't afford not to hire a producer or executive producer when I'm a no or low budget web series or film series? Well, there are ways to hire producers and executive producers that don't have you paying them a set salary. For instance, you can offer them a percentage of the funds that they bring in. That works perfectly fine and it is acceptable. Of course, there are always going to be friends and family who are going to offer to take these positions for you. And my only word of caution is, again, make sure that they are people who will take action. You don't want people to just talk about it, because let me tell you, when it comes right down to asking businesses and individuals for money, not everyone can do that, even if they believe in your project. And worse yet, some people ask in the wrong way. You don't want a producer or executive producer to come across as slick and very Hollywood, so to speak. You want them to come across as sincere. You don't want them to speak in sound bites. You want them to speak in sincere bites. And so you have to be very careful when you choose your team. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to launch a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign to fund my project. People don't just go to those campaigns. Go ahead and Google how to run a successful Kickstarter campaign. There are many, many blogs about individuals, single individuals who have run thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars successful Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, and they talk about how they did it. And you know what the biggest thing they say is? People will have heard about your project 7 times before they actually donate. How many posts would you need to post on your Facebook page? How many blogs would you have to write? If 1% of the people who see your posts, 1%, actually donate, and they only donate after they've seen your call to action 7 times, how many people would have to donate $5 each to make a project budget of $1,000? It really adds up. For Epic Heroes, we did paid ads on Facebook that were literally seen by more than 1,000 people. We got one click-through that resulted in a pledge. We got thousands of click-throughs that resulted in a like of the campaign. So you see the difference there? You have to be careful. Don't just assume you can handle it all yourself, especially if you want that script to be great and you're the writer and the director, or, oh my gosh, the writer, director, and cinematographer. You cannot also take on producing and executive producing. You have to find someone as passionate about the project as you are, who is willing to go that extra mile and design that marketing campaign, either with you, for you, whatever it is. Again, you can be involved in fundraising. You should be. Your talent should be. Everyone should be. Prove their dedication to the project. I've always been about that. If I'm involved in a project, I am there on the front lines every day. I don't know if it's visible on camera, but I'm still dealing with the sunburn from sitting at the Epic Heroes 4-day yard sale. But that 4-day yard sale pushed us up over a limit at our own Kickstarter campaign because we took those funds and donated them to the campaign. That's really driving traffic to a campaign online. It isn't the old adage, if you build a campaign, they'll come. That's not going to work. You have to drive people to your project. We had front page press for Epic Heroes, and quite a hook, because we're dealing with many actors who in real life are dealing with health challenges that play characters that deal with those same challenges, and they're imbibed with amazing superpowers. We had children. We were dealing with rising above circumstances in an economy that actually worked really well for projects that were empowering and inspiring. But still, it was a struggle for all of season 1, a huge struggle. And it was a massive drain on the crew, as well as, I'm sure, on many of the talent who participated very actively in the fundraising. So think this through more than anything else, who you hire as your producer and executive producer and what their tasks are going to be. You tell them you've got all the cast and all the rest of the crew to back you up with whatever plans you come up with. But you know what? You need someone you can trust. There's letter writing campaigns, there's phone campaigns, there's direct mail campaigns. Some of them can be done for free, some of them can't. But don't just assume because you're on the front page of a local or even large city paper that suddenly your campaign will be instantly funded. You have to create excitement about your series, your brand. And that is what a producer, an executive producer, both of those truly do. They create the plan that will help that happen. And that's what you want. They will help you take action. And that ends Class 9. I'll see you for Class 10.